What's up, good people of the world? Welcome back to the Expression of Love podcast. It is your host, Soul Expression Indeed, and welcome back to Become Your Own Breakthrough. Now, today, I have no notes behind me. I don't have any notes. Because I'm not finished, listening to two doctors, one functional doctor and one, I think, he was like a family doctor. I don't want to misspeak on his, but two doctors, two legit doctors, Western medicine trained, and they're discussing the relationship between trauma and sickness, and like how healing, intermingles with those two concepts and other things. And at first, for the first 15 minutes or so of this conversation, I was really into it. I was really enjoying it. I liked it. And I was agreeing with most of the things they were saying. Like, one of the most powerful things that they said, or pointed out, if you will, was how when you know the name of an illness, or you give a name to the culmination of the symptoms that you're experiencing, that doesn't let you know the cause of what you're experiencing, i.e., calling your mental troubles depression doesn't translate to depression is causing these symptoms. No, it's just the name that we're giving all of these symptoms combined into one thing. It's just a name. It doesn't tell you that, or it doesn't mean in reality that depression is causing all of the symptoms. It's just a name that we're giving to all the symptoms. So I thought that was really powerful. And like, same thing with like a cancer, right? You have such and such lymphoma, you have such and such cancer. Well, that gives a name to all of the things that your body is going through and all of the changes kind of to come, but it doesn't tell you the cause of it. It doesn't really address the root of the problem. I thought that was great. I thought that was super great. But as the conversation continued, they started talking more and more about what they perceived as the causes for chronic illness, because trauma-based illness, like blunt trauma damage to the body, is easy to diagnose. And then there are some mental disorders that we do know the cause of, that are either genetic, or you at some point in your life developed something in your mind that may have caused a mental disorder. And we know and can look at the symptoms and be able to tell, okay, that's happening here in the brain, here's how we treat it, that kind of stuff. But for a lot of chronic illness, there's a lot of mystery. And they start talking about how a lot of what people don't understand is that the environment is to blame for it. And the first thing I thought of was, well, that's not a message I want to tell people, that look for the blame of something, because they were mentioning how they have this, one of them has this quote, happy childhood test. And he said that when patient comes in to him and he starts asking him questions, start asking him about his childhood, every now and again he gets somebody that is pretty adamant about, I had a really happy childhood, my childhood was great, it was fine. And so he gives him a certain set of questions that he called his happy childhood test. And he said 100% of the time you can tell that they didn't really have a healthy childhood. And hopefully you can see where this is going. He would use that information to then justify blaming people's childhood for their decision making. Like, if they're addicted to something, which that has come up a bunch of times. He said more than once in this conversation that addiction is a response to trauma. which, okay, fine. I'm not saying that that sentence by itself is wrong, but as you progress through the conversation, a theme starts to show its face, where they're both basically making the case that trauma dictates decisions. And I don't think this is right. I think this softens up the population. I think this um, perpetuates the blame game. I think this avoids personal responsibility and accountability. And it saddens me that PhDs make these arguments, and it makes me wonder if the only reason they make these arguments is because they know through trial and error, right, through working with people for decades, from all different backgrounds, that if they stress personal responsibility and if they think in a way that's that takes into account personal responsibility and if they empower all of their clients with personal responsibility and accountability, that their clients will stop showing up. I wonder, I'm not trying to accuse, I wonder if that's an underlying conscious or subconscious motive for going with this model of talking about things in a way that's like, well, you know, you're doing this because of all of this trauma that you have, all of this trauma. Nobody has a happy childhood. One of them even mentioned, they said that one of their clients, they would talk, no, one of their friends, their personal friends outside of work, they would talk often about their childhoods, and he was convinced that his friend had a happy childhood. Not that he was prying into it, but just that's how they talked, and it was outside of work, so he didn't have his antennas on or anything. And his friend always talked about how happy his childhood was, and it was great. And then he says, and then me and my friend's sister were at something, and I brought up one of the stories that he told, and had, you know, this sort of attitude of happiness around his childhood. And his sister said, "What? No, our mom was crazy, and she did this and she did that, and she and and the message that it sends the viewer is that nobody has a happy childhood, because every everything that happens to people, everybody's going to have the same kinds of reactions to, and develop the same meanings for. That's the message that's not true, but that's the message that it sent me, and that's the message that I'm sure sends a lot of the viewers. This video has about 60,000 views or so. There's a lot to think about there, right? There's a lot to think about there, because when you send the message that trauma is the reason people are making bad decisions, which, again, that sentence by itself, sure, there's, you know, plenty of ways to make that quote unquote true. But when you do so in a way that makes that gives the message to the viewer or the listener, you can't change that. You don't have free will to overpower whatever meaning you gave your trauma through time, both consciously and subconsciously. You can't override that with righteousness, with faith, with knowing right and wrong, and choosing to be responsible with yourself and your choices, with holding yourself accountable to the promises you made your loved ones and yourself and your God, if you worship. And when you send that message, you don't empower people with truth. I'm not a doctor. Do not take anything that I say to be medical advice. No, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a, you know, psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever. Did take a couple years of. I was a psych major for a couple years, but I digress. It doesn't sit right in my soul to hear PhDs talk about how people just don't know how traumatized they are in in conversations about addiction and you know, how your childhood affects the decisions that you make in adulthood, focusing on the bad decisions that you make. As I think about this, I know for sure that many of you have probably been affected by messages like this from doctors. And when you're affected negatively by messages like this that come from authority figures, right, in white coats, if you will, you probably have spent a good amount of time and money going to see these doctors. And I mean, go seek help, right? If that's a part of the journey, then great. But what I want to discourage you from doing is buying this message, is taking this message that you're not responsible for your choices, right? It doesn't mean it's a bad choice to go see a therapist or go, get checked out or whatever. Definitely go get checked out. Definitely go see a therapist if you need one. Although, with all of this gender affirming care and that kind of stuff, I'm losing a lot of faith in the practice of therapy in the United States personally, in my personal opinion. I should be able to state that opinion. Nonetheless, when you go see your doctor, if they start talking about, well, this is probably caused by your childhood trauma, understand that there's probably truth in that, but that's not the whole story. And that doesn't dictate what you are able to do moving forward and what you are able to do without needing the help of the person in the white coat. Okay, what you may need a kickstart, you may need a push into the right path. You are powerful. You were created in the image of the creator of the whole universe. You do not need as much as you think you do to get the job done that you want to get done. One of the things that he was talking about was that his wife would be at the grocery store and the teller would see the credit card, and when the teller sees the credit card, they would ask the question, "Oh, are you, Dr. such and such wife? He helped my family. Tell him thank you. And he's such a great guy." And that his wife would get angry and clench her fist because he's always at work. And society, and he said that gave that story to emphasize a point that he was making, which is that society rewards us for the wrong thing, and we should not be focused on helping others, right? Which is the whole Marxist, leftist center point, really. Serve yourself, don't serve others. Your happiness matters over what you're able to do for the world and what you're able to contribute. You, or me. When you are focused on serving your community and serving the greater good, it's not about sacrificing your health or your happiness to do so. It's about giving it your all. And if your wife is not supportive of that, then y'all need to talk about stuff. If your family is not supportive of that, then that's okay. Learn to live through it and work through it. If you really are resentful for doing that, then you probably need to slow down a little bit and take some steps, learn about wisdom, practice being good, learn about what goodness actually is, and take baby steps back to where you can do that without falling too deeply into workaholism, if you will, or stretching yourself too thin. But never get fooled into turning the focus away from what you can do for the greater good into what you can do for your own pleasure or your own selfish desires and needs. The more you get rid of your own selfish desires and needs, not all your desires, but your selfish desires, the more that you're able to balance working and contributing and efforting for other people's sake and resting and taking time to play and be fun in your own life. It is time to take your life back and to become your own breakthrough. Once again, my name is Soul Expression. Thank you so very much for staying here, rocking out with me for as long as you have been. Check out all of my videos in this Become Your Own Breakthrough series. They should help put a lot of things into context. Comment below if you have anything that you would like to agree with, disagree with, argue against, or support. Please stay civil in the comments section. I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Have a wonderful day. Peace.
Expressions of